Hello and welcome to our channel MBA Mentor. In this video, we'll be discussing the basics of communication in a business context, which is an essential skill for students from across the world pursuing management and similar courses. To help us understand these concepts better, I will introduce three characters to you, which is John, Sarah, and Mike, who all are new MBA grads starting their first jobs at a consulting firm. By following their journeys, we'll see how effective communication can make the difference in their success. So meet John, Sarah, and Mike. They are the recent MBA graduates who have just landed their dream jobs at a consulting firm. They are very excited to start their new roles, but they're also a little nervous. They know that effective communication is a key skill for business, and they're not quite sure where to exactly start. Understanding the communication. What is communication and why is it important in a business setting? We'll learn this concept through our characters, John, Sarah, and Mike, as using their first day at work. So as they enter the office, they're greeted by their managers who explains the goal for the day. So there is an example of communication, which is the exchange of information between an individual or group. Now, effective communication is very important in a business setting because it does not only allows this individual like John, Sarah, or Mike to share the ideas, but also to make better decisions. Now, understanding this communication will actually help all these newly joined, freshly graduates to share their ideas, to make important decisions, to build a relationship in the organization, and to achieve the goals. This could be individual as well as the organization. Now, the elements of effective communication. Now that we have understood the communication, why it is important, and we will try to discuss again with the same example. So usually there are five elements of effective communication. Number one is sender. For example, John, Sarah, or Mike is the person who initiates the communication, and the message will be the new idea which they want to pitch in. The channel could be the presentation, how they want to present, and the receiver could be the team members, could be the person who receives the communication. And then the message or the feedback will be the response or the reaction from the idea they are being generated. So to ensure this effective communication, John, Sarah, and Mike need to consider and manage each of these elements carefully. For example, they need to ensure that their message is very clear and relevant to their team. They need to listen to their team's feedback to ensure that the message was understood very correctly. Barriers to effective communication. So despite their best efforts, there are many barriers that can get in the way of effective communication in a business setting. We'll explain these barriers to John, Sarah, and Mike using an example who are trying to communicate with the team member who speaks a different language. So this barrier can actually include language barrier. Of course, if any of the team member is coming from a different background or a different language, then that can be a barrier. Culture differences. There can be different cultures for which the effective communication will not happen because there is a barrier involved. Next is noise and distraction. If the medium or in any way there is a noise and distraction and the message cannot be properly initiated, then that can also be a barrier. Next is the misinterpretation of tone or body language. In different cultures, the body language signifies a different meaning. So that can be one of the misinterpretation of the tone or body language. Now, technical issues. That's like the most common issues in barriers to effective communication. There can be poor audio quality or poor, when you're talking, it could be poor video conference. In a video conference, it could be poor video quality. So with these technical issues, there can be different barriers to effective communication. Now, to overcome these kind of barriers, we have to follow certain steps. There can be many multiple steps to overcome these kind of barriers. Now, John, Sarah, and Mike need to be aware of all of them, and there has to be some steps to minimize all those barriers. For example, the language which they are using has to be very simple, short, and clear. So clear and concise language is one way to overcome a barrier. The second one is to avoid jargons. For example, if there is a word say crashy, or there's a word say hangry, which is a culmination of hunger and angry, so we should avoid those kind of words and acronyms that may not be unfamiliar to others, and especially the visual aids, like for example, to enhance the message whatever you're trying to produce. Now, active listening is one of the key aspects of effective communication. Now, active listening means paying attention to the speaker, understanding the message, and providing feedback or clarify as needed. So, we'll explain this concept to our friend John, Sarah, and Mike. So, to be an active listener, they should pay attention to the team. They should avoid any kind of interruption which is distracting their team. They should confirm their understanding by summarizing or paraphrasing what the team said, and they should provide feedback or the clarification as needed. Now, active listening can actually help John, Sarah, and many others build stronger relationship with their colleagues and ensure that the message are understood correctly. Choosing the right communication method. Finally, it is important to choose the right communication method for the situation. We'll try to explain these concepts to our friend John, Sarah, and Mike using an example. Trying to communicate with a team member who works in a different office. The communication method available to them would include face to face communication. Now, this is the most effective communication method, but it may not be practical if the team member is located in a different office. Second is phone or video call. This method is good for one-on-one conversation. It may not be ideal for a large group, but for a smaller group, it is the best way. The third one is email or instant messaging. Now, this method is actually useful for conveying information very quickly. It may not be suitable for complex and sensitive topics, but to choose the right method, John, Sarah, or Mike need to consider these factors like the nature of message, the number of people involved, and the urgency of communication and the availability of technology. Relations. You have now learned the basics of business communication. Effective communication is a key skill for success in a business world. And by following John, Sarah, and Mike's journey, we have seen how it can make all the differences in achieving our goals. Remember to consider the elements of effective communication, overcome barriers to communication, practice active listening, and choose the right communication method for the situation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.